What does it actually take to make $40,000 per month online? Hi, I'm Joe Kraus, host of the Buying Online Businesses podcast, and in this episode, I'm speaking with Adam Smith, who's from Niche Website Builders, and he's bought, sold, and flipped many websites, content websites, for excellent profits. We've talked about that on our podcast before, on other episodes. He's also the co-founder of Niche Website Builders, where they help people scale their content sites through content and link building. Now, in this podcast episode, it's part 2 of a podcast that I did with Mark Mars, but I'm getting the other half of Niche Website Builders, Adam Smith, to finish off in part 2. And what we do is we talk about how they have one client who built a $1.6 million business in 12 months and how that business makes them $40,000 per month. And we talk about what it actually cost them in terms of time, money, and resources. So we talk about the domain that they bought to build this site, how much it cost to buy that domain, what type of domain it was, what was involved in purchasing that, and the story behind it. We also talk about how much content that they produce for this actual website, how much it cost them, how many words, how many articles. We also talk about them purchasing additional domains as redirects into the main website that came with a lot of backlinks, which was part of their backlink building strategy and a cheaper method for doing so when building backlinks, and how they structured the website and their articles around buying multiple age domains to build a site out with great SEO and great content that produces a great amount of traffic coming to the site with a great income. We also talk about some of the things they did with the homepage SEO wise and having, the least amount of clicks to get to the content. We also talk about some of the other link building they did towards the end of the podcast episode. Now, this is such a valuable episode of what it takes to build a content site on an age domain, how much it can cost, and what the results can be. Of course, a disclaimer that these results are not typical. We talk about what the average time frame may be to start seeing results and how much it actually may cost you if you were to go down this route. So such a valuable episode. I know you guys are going to love it. Do you want to build or grow your content website? Niche Website Builders have helped hundreds of people to take their content websites from a few $100s per month to over tens of thousands of dollars per month with crafted content creation, buying age domains, and link building strategies. These strategies have helped people increase their traffic, authority, monthly earnings, and their website valuation too. Head to nichewebsite.builders/BOB/ to get 10% off any link building or 10% more from their content creation services. That's nichewebsite.builders/Bob/. I'll put a link in the description too. Adam, how lucky are we? We get to chat on the reg about online business.
Like we're best friends now. We're besties.
I love it. We're sharing our travel stories and everything. It's good. Yes. Yeah. So this episode, we're going to dive in to the case study that we started talking about with Mark, your co-pilot and co-founder at Niche Website Builders. And we started talking about how one of your clients, you built this asset, $1.6 million asset, which is a business. We talked a lot about tomb rating, SEO style, backlinks, how many backlinks should you use and all that sort of stuff. But in this episode, we want to specifically get to what happened with this deal and this business, and how did you actually get these results. So let's start off with, it was that the person, your client, bought an age domain. Let's talk about that first. How much did they spend? We don't need exact figures, but roughly how much, what type of domain?
Sure.
What goes into that?
Sure. So you're right. We were actually, me and Mark were actually watching the domain at auction ourselves, at GoDaddy auction. The day that it was about to expire. Or the day that the auction was ending, essentially. And, it was on our short list of domains that we would typically look at purchasing anyway. And then, we have a set criteria of how much we're going to pay. And this went over that set criteria by quite a bit. And at the time, we were like, wow, why is this why is this domain sold for so much? It's sold for kind of high teens, shall we say, in terms of, between $15,000 and $20,000. And it turns out the reason being, I think, is because it has an affiliation to someone that's quite famous, someone that's quite well known. And yeah, that night we watched the auction, and then we just forgot. We thought, okay, somebody paid for this domain, and that's it. And then literally the next
Yeah.
day, the guy emailed us and said, "Hey, I won this domain last night. Can you help me build out a site?" I'm like, that was you. We were watching it. What the heck? What?
Oh,
So yeah, but the
that's
domain itself
cool.
was,
That's
like I say,
cool.
it had an affiliation with someone quite famous at some point during the time. It was like one of their philanthropy projects. Um, and I believe it was around is it about a DR44, I think, but a strong DR44. The backlinks were super niche relevant, and yeah, it was a very strong domain to start with, well-rounded domain.
Cool, cool. So DR44 had some famous person in philanthropy. Are we talking a one word.com? Are we talking four figures, five figures, six figures, seven figures? How much are we looking at that it went
It
for
was
auction?
it
If
was
we can
between
share.
$15,000 and $20,000 for the domain.
Okay.
And no, it's not a one word. It's the something something, and it wasn't even a .com.
Yep.
It was a .org. So
Okay.
it's that's why
Okay.
we were like
So
shocked when we saw the auction going so high to start with. Like, yeah,
yeah, without a dot com and sort of three words sounds like. So between 15 to 20, DR44. And then, so this person just out of the blue, you one day looking at it, somebody sold it, and then they say, hey, give us a hand. That's pretty cool. So what
yeah.
happened from there? When somebody goes, I've bought a domain, what did you chat about? What were the things that you decided or thought would work to put in place? And let's
Yeah.
start that off.
Sure. So we had an initial kind of onboarding call, like a discovery call, where we talk about some of our ideas, and they present some of their ideas about direction that we could take the site in. And this site's in a niche or a niche that's super expansive. You can pretty much keep on adding content forever. So in those cases, it's where do you
Right.
start is the hardest part, I think. Like how do you know
Hmm.
which subtopic of the overall niche to start with? And this is great where our tomb rating keyword research comes in, because you don't have to pick. You can look at the competitors in the space, see what's working well for those guys, and base the research on there. So I won't delve into the tomb rating, because I think you and Mark covered that quite a bit last call. But essentially, we talked about tomb rating and how that would guide us in our direction for the initial content.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. Yeah, so I'm just going to pull up the podcast episode that Mark and I did, so people know what number it actually is, so they can go back
Yeah.
and check it out. Because we did cover, like you said, we did cover the tomb rating SEO, and we covered a bunch of other things. It's episode number 155 on how to build a $1.6 million content website in 12 months with Mark Mars. So check that out, guys. That'll be part one of this. And then this is part two now, where we're going to dive into how much content, like how much content. Let's talk about what type of content, info, affiliate, and then we'll talk about, I'd love to talk about structure and all that sort of stuff. So what was the starting
Sure.
point? You've got this domain, and where did you go with content? Did you decide what type of content to create and how much? And what was the answer for that?
Sure. So given the fact that the client had spent quite a bit of money on the initial domain, he wanted to launch the site with quite a large amount of content to start with. So we
Yeah.
launched the site in
Yeah.
December 2020 with 150,000 words of content. It's all informational based content, or I'd say 97% is informational based content. It's a specific type of content. It's like a list, typically the listicle type. So, for example, we looked at an age domain on our live stream this week, which was about birds, and one of the listicle types that we come up with was 50 blackbirds, backyard blackbirds in New York, or 25 birds that have red heads. It's that kind of
So big
informational type
lists.
of,
Yeah.
of content. Yeah, that's it.
Cool.
So yeah, we built the site. We launched it initially with 150,000 words. On average, each piece of content was around 1,500 to 2,000 words long. Um, and very quickly, we saw some nice early traction. Like even for an age domain, we saw very very good early traction for the site. Within the first couple of days, there was traffic, and within the first couple of weeks, it was getting a couple of hundred visitors a day. Which then gave the client confidence that I want to keep going. I've spent a lot on the domain. I've put a lot of content. I can see this is taking off. And we were kind of giving some advice and saying, like, this is really fast, even for an age domain, to gain this kind of traction. Like,
Hmm.
if you've got the resources, this is one to push. So in January, we agreed to add more content, and that was pushed live in February with another 150,000 words. And then whilst that was being published, we were creating more content. And I guess we can go into like the full schedule of content, but essentially it was about 2 million words of content over 13 months. Essentially, the site has.
Wow. Okay. So 150,000 words, 1,500 to 2,000 words per article. So we're looking at about 100-ish articles, I guess, on average,
Yeah.
right? And so that means that was 150,000 words, sort of times that by 10, you got 1.5 mil. So we're looking at what, about two times by 10. So we're looking at about a thousand articles over the time frame of this. Is that right?
Yeah, it's slightly
Roughly.
less. There's about 900 pieces of content on there.
You started seeing traffic. What did you say, within a week?
Yeah, it was very, very quickly, like incredibly
Crazy.
quick. It's yeah, within the first week there was traffic, and within the first kind of 5 or 6 weeks, the site was getting a couple of hundred visitors per day.
Okay, a couple of hundred visitors. So when was the milestones? And this can be rough. When were the milestones of, say, 100,000 page views to more? Like, what sort of page views are we getting now with it? And then do you know the milestones of that?
Kind of, not exactly. So I know
Yeah.
I just pulled up analytics in January. The site got 3.3 million page views. So that was month 13. It's 3.3 million. Um, but
Wow.
it's on kind of like an exponential growth path, because it got to 2 million in November. So it went from 2 million to 3.3 million in just 2 months, essentially. And then I think it was around July or August time that it got to about a million. So from December to kind of July or August, that's how long it took to get to a million page views per month, which again is just incredibly fast.
That's wild. That's wild. It really is.
Yeah.
So for people listening, they're like, all right, cool, I can buy an age domain, and then just add a bunch of content to it. Now, in theory, it's pretty simple, but there's more that goes on behind the scenes of what type of content that you should be creating. Of course, the tomb rating SEO, keyword research is something you guys are really good at, which we cover in episode 155 with Mark. So listen to that, guys. And then once you've got a bunch of content, how do you structure putting the content out? Do you just go, cool, let's just drop 100 posts a month? Or do you put them through
Yeah.
daily? Do you tell me a bit more about the structure on how you release them and publish them, and how you also
Sure.
put them into different maybe categories on the site, or put them in different places on the site? And how did that look like and work for you guys? Like, and did that was that a big help or not?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. And in this case, we kind of had conversations with the client that if the site continued on its current trajectory, that he was willing to keep adding content. Like I say, the niche is almost never ending. You could add literally 10 million words, I think, in this space and still have stuff to talk about. So we talked early on
Mm,
about if the site continues to see this trajectory, like he's going to keep adding content, he's going to keep adding fuel to the fire. So we didn't worry about any kind of publishing schedule. We just added the content and pushed it live as quickly as we could. As soon as it was ready, then it was pushed live, typically on a 4-week schedule, ideally. So if we create 150,000 words in 4 weeks, we would upload it to the website, we would check it, and once it's all ready to go, then we would publish it all live within a couple of days, essentially. And then we would move on to the next batch, which would be another 150,000 for the next 4 weeks. And then once that's ready, just push it out. In terms of like structure, in terms of like categories, the category structure of this website evolved quite a bit over time. And I'll talk about a reason why that changed. But before that, I'll just talk about kind of the way we set up the site. So whenever we build a site, we never hard code the category into the URL. We never use that as the permalink. It's never /category/post, just because we
yeah.
understand as a site grows, you probably will need to amend like the category structure. So it started off really basic. In this case, we had like almost two very broad categories to start with. And then as we started adding more content, it made sense not to have, 150 pieces of content under one very broad category. We could break it down into subcategories.
Hmm.
And then that also led us into we started acquiring other age domains to redirect into this site, and that influenced the category structure quite a bit too, because we would make a new category around whatever subtopic of the domain we were going to redirect in. So if you think, for example, this might have been a site about sports, if we found another age domain that was about tennis, we would go and we would create, the next batch of 150,000 words of content around tennis specifically. We would create a new subcategory called tennis, and then we would redirect the tennis domain into that category of content. And then the next month, we might find an expired domain about rugby, and we'll create another 150,000 words about rugby, new category, and then redirect the domain into that category of content all about rugby. So the category structure was influenced in two ways. One is just spreading it out, and the other one was through the age domain acquisition that we went on as well.
Wow. Okay. So buying more age domains and creating categories around, not creating a separate site for that, but creating category on that own pay the main domain that you bought first on that website. Okay. And how many domains did you or did the owner purchase, and
So there was
how
six
frequently?
domains in. Yeah, so there was six domains in total. And they went from December through till June. So basically, it was one a month, apart from April, because we couldn't find one that was worthy of redirecting in April.
Hmm.
So in
Hmm.
December, we redirected in a DR39, and in January, we redirected in a DR48, and in February, another DR48, and in March, a DR25. And then we didn't do one for April, and then May, a DR39, and June, a DR31. So six fairly powerful domains were redirected in over the course of the first 7 months, basically.
Oh, wow. Okay. So thinking about those domains, where it sounds like they've been purchased between the $5,000 to $20,000 range as well, right? Am I wrong, or is
No,
that,
so though,
are we talking?
yeah, those domains were cheaper. They would be what we would consider like a typical domain of those kinds of costs. They were around
Okay.
between kind of $3,000 and $4,000 each.
Okay. So in between 3 to 4K for each of those. So we got six, right? So yeah,
It was about eighteen thousand
six
in
times
in
three.
domain additional domain
Yeah.
costs.
Yep. Yeah. Cool. Okay. And then each domain, if you're doing 150,000 words, you roughly have about 90 posts per domain per category, something like that.
Yeah, pretty
Okay.
much.
All right. Wow. Okay.
I
Cool.
should probably say
I
as well at
like
this
it.
point that yeah, just because this is a question that people always ask is, okay, well, that's awesome, you redirected in six domains, how did that affect the site's DR? Like, it started as a DR44,
Yes.
what is it now? And
Exactly.
it's a DR64 now, which is pretty good. I
Okay.
think it's exponentially harder to go up a DR the higher you go up. So to go from a 10 to a 20 is a lot easier than to go from a 50 to a 60, for example. So yeah,
Mm.
just thought I'd throw that in there because I think it's a question people would probably want to know or will ask in the comments or something.
Yeah. I mean, from 45 to 60, 44, I think 45 to 65
To
is real, or
64.
64.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. And so why did this work? Why does buying another domain work, and adding that as a category and a bunch of content on the main site? Why does it work? How does it work? Obviously, the disclaimer that we need to make is that the domains that have been purchased need to be in niche, I guess. And how similar do they need to be? I know there's a lot of questions in there, but I just want to unpack this.
Yeah, no, that's they're great questions. So the thing I would always suggest people when they are thinking about buying a domain to redirect to them to their main site is it needs to be of the same kind of quality that you would build a money site on, your main site. Like you can't cut corners. Somebody asked us a question the other day about how much would you expect to pay for a money site domain versus a redirect domain, and the answer is the same. Like the quality should be the same. So first of all, you should put it through the same vetting process. It should be the same quality. If it has any kind of red flags or anything like that, then you just walk away from it. Um, Relevancy is really important to the
Mm,
overall topic. The closer you can match it, the better. It's the same however you work with an age domain. Relevancy is always key. The one thing that you should probably try and look for when you are thinking about a domain to redirect to your main site is look at where the majority of the links point on the site that you're going to redirect in. Do they point to the homepage? Do they point to individual pieces of content? If the majority of them are pointing to the homepage, that's great because you've got free reign over what content you can create when you are redirecting it to your acquisition page. And we'll probably come on to the strategy around that in a second. But if there's lots of individual pages that have lots of great links, you probably need to factor in that into your, of the 90 pieces of content you're going to create, you need to factor in some of those are going to have to be created so you can redirect the individual pages to those as well. So but why it works, I think redirecting age domains into sites, as long as it's done right and the domains are good and you've done a lot of your vetting, it's a super cost effective way of link building.
Mm.
Like, for example, this site went from about 400 referring domains to almost 9,000 referring domains over the course of 12 months. And the majority of, or a big chunk of that was taken up through redirects. And if you were to try and buy or try and build 8,000 links, it would cost you way more than $18,000 in what it costs for these redirected domains. So it's really cost effective if done right.
Wow, what an awesome strategy. So you're buying a basically you're not just buying one sort of backlink, you're buying a hub of backlinks really that you can plug
Yeah,
into your site. And I guess you buy that, say that he's bought his first domain, you built all the content on that and you bought the second one and you just redirect that second domain straight to the category page with all the blog posts. Is that what you do? Or where do you redirect it to?
almost. Yeah, almost. So we create a specific page that we call an acquisition page. And the first kind of paragraph of that acquisition page will talk about how your main site has acquired this other site and how you're going to welcome all the readers and
Cool.
basically just talk about it being acquired. And then
Mm.
underneath that, then you're going to have almost like a skyscraper piece of content. So going back to my example, if this was a tennis domain, we would redirect in. We would say, this site has acquired this site. Welcome all the readers. If you don't know who we are, this is who we are. Oh, and also this is the history of tennis and how it was started. It would be a couple of thousand word piece of content, but in there would be internal links to all those 90 pieces of content that we've created about tennis. So it's very similar to a category page,
Hmm.
but we call it an acquisition page. It's a standalone. It stands alone as well as the category page. And then we would redirect the domain, all of the posts, if there's nothing to match up one to one, straight to that acquisition page to power up that page. And then through those internal links, it passes all those power down through to the individual blog posts that we've created about tennis and distributes the power through that category quite evenly and quite nicely. And then typically, then we'd also put out a press release to say that your site has acquired the other site, just to try and make it look as natural as possible. If one business acquires another business, typically this is what they will do. They'll make some kind of acquisition
Hmm.
page. They'll talk
Hmm.
about it. They'll want some press. They'll put out a PR statement, and we just want to show to Google that we're imitating what a real business would do if they acquired another one.
And so you do that on socials and things like that, the press.
Just a PR, a press release service. So there's you can use
Okay,
Web
through the
20
press. Yeah.
Ranker or 38 Digital Media. Yeah.
Cool, cool. And so, say you've got 90 posts for each category, you have ninety internal links on that acquisition page. Is that throughout the content, or is
Yes.
it a list, or like it's quite a lot?
No, throughout. So contextual, and it's
Cool.
we've got a couple of members on our team now that have got really good at creating these acquisition pages. To start with, it was really hard because you have to write like
Mm.
a 2 or 3 thousand word piece of content that contextually and as naturally as possible internally links to 90 pieces of content. It's hard, but they're
Yeah,
really great at
yeah,
doing
of
it. I
course.
sometimes get them back. I'm like, wow, how did you manage to do that?
And have it read good, right? Like that's a
Yes.
tough task. Good on you. Yeah. So, all right, that's excellent. That is obviously for people listening. It's not just hey, let's just buy a domain, put a bunch of content on it, and we're gonna be good to go. Obviously, you're going to structure the content in different ways. You put different types of content, subheadings and video I'm sure you've used and images. I
Yeah,
wanted to speak about this, the whole sort of site structure. We understand now what it looks like buying an age domain and building content around that and plugging that into a main site. But let's talk about the main site homepage structure, and then how you get to all of the other content. So the six domains with the 90 each, 90 pieces of content each for those. How do you get to that? I do. The reason I ask is because I do business breakdowns in the inner circle mastermind that we have with a bunch of our clients with content sites and also ecom businesses, and structure out what they need on the homepage and why. The most important question is why it needs to be there, and how important it
yeah,
is. So I'm curious to hear how the homepage of this site looks. Did you sort of structure it in a way that you've got lots of categories, most popular pieces of content, uh, any authority sort of things put on the site? Yeah, what does it look like
sure,
without telling us the domain?
sure. So the homepage is fairly basic. The homepage has a little bit of content on there, and then it has basically three of the main categories broken down. And it's got a link to each of the category pages, so you can go straight to the category page from the homepage. It's got a small amount of text around, like what this category covers, and then it's got a link to automatically pulls in the latest three posts from each category. So it's a basic homepage, to be honest. There's not a ton of stuff on there.
Mm,
Visually, there's like three posts for each category that pull in automatically based on date, and a link to all of the categories on the homepage. The one thing which we do make sure of, though, in terms of site structure, two things. One is the categories, like the category structure or the menu structure, is typically very flat. We don't have like sports, and then underneath sports, ball sports, and then underneath that, tennis, and then underneath that, table tennis, like
hmm
layers deep. It's a very flat structure.
hmm
And that allows us on the homepage in the menu structure then to have pretty much all of the categories laid out on the homepage.
hmm
So that's the one thing. And then the other thing is that we're also big fans of custom category pages. So we don't typically tend to use the standard WordPress category page, and the main reason being, if you've got a category with 90 posts in, for example, and you use the standard WordPress category structure, typically it'll be paginated or paginated. I never know how to pronounce that word correctly, but you'll have like page 2, page 3, page 4 before you get to the end of those 90 posts.
mm.
And what that does is it increases overall site click depth, which basically means how far away is a piece of content from the homepage. And if you use those kind of category pages, typically you have to click on the category, then you might have to click next, next, next 5 times. And if you imagine the Google bot having to do that, it's tedious.
Yeah,
So when we make a custom category page, we don't use the pagination or pagination. It's all of the posts are on the one page. So on the sites that we build, all of the categories or all the menus are in, all the categories are in the menu structure. And then if you click any of those categories, you can view any post within 2 clicks from the homepage, essentially.
good rule of thumb: 2 clicks from the homepage to get to content. You don't want to make it harder for
Yeah.
Google. And when you make it harder for Google, you're making it harder for users anyway. So it's basically the same. Same with user
Yeah.
experience. When the user experience isn't great, Google's going to find out. So I like that. I want to touch on before we talk about how much they spent on content and all the different things,
Yeah.
sort of break it down. I want to talk about link building. Basically, it looks like the link building was done through the acquisition of these other age domains. But were there some other things? Were there some outside link building done as well, or were there some other things that we may be missing, other than buying age domains, creating categories, creating content for those categories, creating content for the main age domain, and structuring the site? Were there some other things that we may be missing?
Yes, we did a shotgun skyscraper campaign, link building campaign, towards the later end of the site build as well. And that lasted for the setup month and 3 months of outreach. And then we switched then over to our new service, which is Haro Link Building. And we did that for two reasons. One is Haro Link Building is great for building like high quality, typically editorial type links. So they're really good high quality links. But the other thing it's really good at is building a digital footprint for the persona or the person on the About Us page of the website. And typically, most websites have a fake persona on the About Us page. It's a image from this person does not exist and a whole invented backstory, and that means they don't have any digital footprint. And you know, in
Mm-hmm.
certain niches, EAT or expertise, authority, and trust is not that important. And in other niches, it is important. But I think over time, it's going to become important for all as Google figures out how to, understand is someone a genuine expert or not. So when you link build
Mm.
using Haro, you'll reach out as the person on the About Us page to these journalists, and it could be Adam, who's a specialist in tennis, for example, and has been a tennis coach for 10 years. And then when they link back to
Mm-hmm.
your website, or when they link back and use your quote in the article, typically they will mention you by name. They'll say, this is a quote from Adam Smith from tennis.com. And what that does is it starts to build this digital footprint around someone that's not real, and you start to build real expertise, authority, and trust for someone that's not real and doesn't, typically doesn't deserve it. But it's a great way of adding a level of EAT to your site and going above and beyond what competitors typically do or are typically doing. So yeah, we've also started some Haro, and that campaign's ongoing now.
Wow. Okay. Cool. What a lesson on building EAT. Um, it's it's a so when you are linking to say Adam, who's an expert on tennis, you where you linking it to? Are you linking it to a social account, or are you linking it to somewhere else to have a digital footprint built up somewhere else, or how is this? What's this link look like?
No, it usually comes back to the homepage of the website. The thing with Haro,
Okay.
you can't control where the link is built to. They might link to the About Us page on the website, but typically they link to the homepage. But the anchor text that they use to link will,
Yeah.
more often than not, will say, this is a quote from Adam Smith at tennis.com, and the anchor text would be Adam Smith at tennis.com, for example. And it mentions
Gotcha.
the person by name, and that's where you know the link is between that person, then the name being
Yep.
on a high authority site and in the anchor text linking back to you. That's where you start to build that EAT for the site then, or for the person.
Yeah. The EAT is an interesting one. Something that I'm working with all of my clients on how to build it in a win-win for multiple people. And you explain it the exact way that I explain it is that what is EAT is basically you need to have a digital footprint that Google can see, and most sites don't have that, but it can be built if you understand you know some ways that you can do it. That can, for example, one of our clients yesterday was it yesterday. Sorry, it was on Tuesday. We had a call and he said, "Look, I've got all these people reaching out to me wanting to do this sort of work with my site." I'm like, "Great, you don't need to do outreach to get EAT. It's coming to you," which is one of our strategies
Yeah.
that I kind of keep with my mastermind clients before it gets too widespread. So let's talk about the investment. We'll wrap it up with the investment that they've made in this. So we've got the domain in between $15,000 to $18,000. Then you got the 6 additional domains, which is around the $18,000 mark range. Then you got the content. How much do they spend on content? So we've got roughly 18 plus 18 to 36K. How much do they spend on content?
It's about $150,000, which sounds an awful lot. It is an awful lot. It's probably out of the reach of most people that are starting a website and they don't have that kind of money to drop on content over a 12-month period. So I should probably caveat this whole podcast by saying, like, this is a high return website,
Mm,
but it was also a very high. There was a lot of money that went into this site in a short space of time too. So it's not really your typical kind of results that you would expect by, like you say, just buying a domain and putting some content on there. You wouldn't get these kind of results just doing that. So yeah,
yeah.
just to caveat the whole interview with that.
Of course, I think it's really important to say. So, we're looking around 190K that's been put into this, and obviously it wasn't completely from scratch because we've bought multiple, and basically bought 7 age domains, good age domains, to build this out. I wanted to talk about scalability because people may be thinking, oh, okay, what if I started with 50K and I saw that, all right, I bought a domain for 10K and then went, all right, I'll put 20K into, put 20 or 10K into content and then 10K into another 5 domains. And then, they spend 50, would they typically start seeing, because this is not a typical result. You started seeing results within a few days, a few weeks, and then you could
Yeah.
see the scalability. And I'm sure the business started making money through ad revenue pretty quickly. Was he able to draw much out of the business to reinvest into it, or was it mostly out of pocket?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think the business became pretty self-sufficient after like the first 6 to 8 months. I think in January the site was doing over $40,000 a month in ad revenue. It's way more than kind of self-sufficient now. It pays for the ongoing content and ongoing links and pretty much anything else the site needs, and a ton more. So yeah, the ideal would be to get to the site to the point where it's paying for new content to start
Yeah,
with, and then
yeah,
once it's paying for new content, anything above that is profit then, and money back in your pocket to start paying off your initial investment. Each site gets
yeah.
there slightly differently, slightly different time zones and stuff. And what I would say is each project is different. Some projects we might say you need a higher investment in content, and we'll look for less expired domains for you. Or some might say like we've got an awesome domain to start with. We don't really need any expired domains for the first 6 months. Let's put most of that budget
Mm.
into content and see what happens.
Yeah, I think that's great because when you think about this 190K has gone into this as an investment. Maybe at the start it was 80K, half of that. So people thinking like, I don't have 200K to spend on this, but there's possibility of, hey, start with you can start with 30, 40, and then as it
Yeah,
starts to make the money, obviously 6 months is pretty fast. You may be looking at 12 months for it to be able to
yeah,
pay for the content itself. But that's a big disclaimer we need to make as well.
yeah, definitely. This is not
Yeah.
a get rich quick kind of thing. You should ideally be looking like 12 to 18 months really to see kind of like any kind of decent returns. This site is just it's something different, something special, I think.
Yeah, totally, totally. Well, congratulations on this. Congratulations to you guys and the owner. I'm so stoked for all parties involved, really. And where can we send people to find out more about what you guys are doing and how you've been able to help other people do the same?
Sure. So I'm assuming you're going to put your link in the show notes. So come to our website, use Jared's link. We've got a special offer for Bob customers where you can get some additional content or some money off link building if you wanted to work with us. If you're not sure if you want to work with us yet, then you can go onto our website and book a free 30-minute call, almost like a strategy call. We'll talk you through some options. You can ask us questions, almost pick our brains for 30 minutes essentially. And then if you decide you want to move forward, then go back through Jared's link and claim your discount and claim your free content essentially. But yeah, over at Niche Website Builders, nichewebsite.builders, that's probably the easiest place to get to us. There's a little chat icon on there if you want to send us a message, or like say there's a book a call button on pretty much every page.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on, Adam, and sharing. Guys, there'll be a link in the show notes. Check them out. Also, if you did like this episode, please make sure you hit the subscribe button so you can listen to more. And if you thought this was valuable and that other people that would have thought this would be valuable too, please make sure you share this podcast episode with them. Speak to you soon, guys. Bye.
Hey YouTube watcher, if you thought that video was good, you should check out this video here on the 2 best types of websites beginners should buy. Or check out my playlist on how I made my first 100K from buying websites and how to do due diligence. Check it out. It's an awesome playlist. You'll enjoy it.